Okay, let's react to this. Why the Batman sound is different, and I really enjoy by Thomas Light. Subscribe to his channel if you appreciate his videos. And I'm really interested in film. So me, anything has to do with film, I enjoy. Film enthusiast. If you didn't know, now you know. But let's watch this video.
Listen to this. This otherworldly sound happens to be a Justin Bieber song slowed down 800%, and it's this contorted version of the song that was responsible in part for inspiring what would eventually become the sound of the Batmobile in the latest Batman film. This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Watch the exclusive companion video on Nebula when you sign up for the CuriosityStream Nebula bundle today. Watch this clip on mute. A truck passes in front of the frame, and imagine with me for a moment what sound you think will accompany that truck. Got it? Okay, here it is.
I must choose my targets carefully.
Instead of a truck, we hear a train. But there's no visual sign of a train in this shot or any of the shots in close proximity. The film establishes trains as part of the setting, but when the sound plays, we don't see a train. The sound of the train passing fades out as the truck passes. It's almost as if the truck was making the sound. I'm guessing if you've seen the movie, you didn't even notice or think about this. But this small detail reveals something about sound in film, and especially how it's used in the back.
Yeah. Based off that a clip that he's showing of the truck passing by and there being like a train sound in the background, that just kind of like puts more into the narrative. Like there's just so much more there. Like you're just like imagining that the train in the background must be like a city, and like there must be some sort of like traffic going on, but there's this truck going, so it seems more like loud and noisy, but it's dark at night, so it's kind of like scary too, like it's pretty dark, but there's still like systems of like traffic going on.
And that I think is fascinating. Gotham City in the new Batman film is soaked in rain. I don't think I've seen a film that uses rain this relentlessly since David Fincher's Seven, which this movie is obviously drawing some inspiration
like I have seen,
from.
like,
it's impressive the range of effects and moods that the sound team for the Batman manages to get out of the sound of the rain. This rain hitting...
It's difficult though, like when you have like so much rain, it's difficult to change, or you're obviously setting the tone and setting like the mood, but I think it's just difficult to work with because you can't switch up too much, or else it's gonna look like out of place. But if you keep it like too toned into that like rainy flow state, it might bore people, I would say.
That signal at the beginning almost has a sinister sizzling feel. The rain in this scene feels cold, icy, and almost sleet-like. The rain in a more intimate setting like this one or this one feels warmer and cozier. And in this scene where Batman's...
Also, I think Robert Pattinson, oh man, I think like he has had an amazing like career as an actor, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really completely fully watch Twilight, but just even like knowing that he was in it, and I did watch The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is one of those films that you have to like really pay close attention to, like the change of like dynamics that you would see like in a movie, because like it's not one of those films that you're like that's like hype or anything like that. It's not like, oh wow, like I'm gonna go watch like a Marvel movie. No, it's like The Lighthouse was different. It's not for the average viewer of like now what we would call like pop movies, but it's more of like that film seeker who wants to watch something different, wants to like experience something new. So yeah, I applaud Robert Pattinson for keeping his film discography so versatile.
Some hard-boiled detective investigating. The rain in the background almost sounds like boiling or simmering water. If you listen closely, the rain has a unique sound in almost every scene or location in the film, and the differences in the sounds don't just reflect the fact that rain sounds different in different environments. They actually design the sound of the rain to reinforce the mood of each scene. I've talked before about expressionism in cinematography, and similar to how harsh shadows and lighting and even set design can become an external manifestation of a character's internal psychological state, sound can express these things as well. But the way
I like that. I like the idea. The way that he's analyzing the projection of a movie onto a character and vice versa. That's pretty interesting when you think about like the movies that you've watched.
Sounds isn't the only way you can use sound expressively. The mix of the sound, its volume, and the relative volume of different sound elements in the scene can be used in an expressionistic way. Take this moment. If you were standing in a room and it was raining outside, you could hear the rain, and as long as it's still raining in the real world, the volume of the rain outside isn't going to change. But let's turn down the dialogue in this scene, and I want you to listen closely to what's happening with the sound of the rain in the background.
Also, it's funny how this guy, I don't know if he's like setting the aesthetic or on purpose or not, but the glasses with the hat, a little bit like tilted. It's just, oh man, that's a look. That is definitely a look. I don't know what kind of look it is. I don't know if it's primarily like, I feel like it's kind of, I don't want to say it's like nerdy, but it's geeky. He's definitely a geeky guy. I don't know. It's not like, stereotypes are so misrepresented sometimes. I don't want to say it in a harsh way. I'm just saying it in a satirical way, but he is a geeky film guy. Pattinson is so fine, Jesus Christ, and she's so fine too, not gonna lie, but Robert Pattinson, wow, look at that, I'd kiss him right there. Yeah, he wanted to kiss her so bad.
The rain, which is a prominent part of the ambient soundscape, softens and almost drops away completely for a moment to emphasize the tension between Batman and Selina, before coming back in towards the end.
She was like so ready to accept that kiss too. Yeah, the tension is there. She was like, kiss me. He's like, I want to, but fuck, I can't.
Step into Wix Studio, the new web creation platform built for.
The mix here is modeling the sound of the film around the subjective experience of the characters. In the real world, when you're focused in on something, you tend not to pay attention to the ambient sounds around you. They're still there at a constant volume, but you're not actually hearing them. Right now, in whatever environment you're...
Okay, I think like the point that he's trying to make is that, wait, hold on, let me check.
Watching this in.
Yeah. The point that he's trying to make here is that he's just focusing in on the film idea that the directors want to portray within the scene, being that there is so much emphasis on the noise, but there also is a cut from the noise. So there's this kind of like faded focus on the tension between the emotions of the characters. And I think Mozart said this once, that music is not the whatever within like the notes, but it's just the pauses of silence within the music. And it's important to like notice that, you know, when you listen to music, switch ups, like when it gets quiet a little bit or when it like rises or whatever, like that is also key to music. Anyways,
are probably all kinds of external sounds that you haven't been listening to while you're listening to me. But if I draw your attention to them like I'm doing now, you probably suddenly become aware of them. In our subjective experience of the world, what we hear reflects what we're paying attention to. So by manipulating the level of certain ambient sounds, the sound team is placing you as the viewer inside the character's subjective perspective. This kind of subjectivity isn't just created through levels. Listen to this moment and pay close attention to the sound of the camera flashes.
He's wearing gloves. Friday, July 16th.
Okay, by the way, if you guys have seen Westworld, oh my god, you obviously know who this guy is if you've seen Westworld, and if you've seen Westworld, like, oh my god, Westworld is one of those shows where, it's one of those shows that if you watch and you're really like invested in it, Jesus, you learn so much. I don't know if you guys ever watch a show and like learn an enormous amount and like reference it to the point where it's just another psychological literature that goes on within you subjectively. But this man right here, he was in Westworld. He had like such an amazing role. I think he did wonderful in it. It was just so and he is a key character in Westworld, so it makes sense why I'd be so invested in him. But yeah.
Life has been a cruel riddle I could not solve.
Hear how they become echoey and reverby as Gordon reads the Riddler's words? In this scene, we're inside Batman's auditory perspective. Here, the sound design isn't replicating a real-world effect in how we perceive sound, just like we don't actually see in slow motion, but sometimes cinematographers use that to create a subjective effect. There's a kind of dissociative quality to this kind of echoey effect that helps us understand the headspace the characters are in. In a film, sound's relationship to reality can be very loose. Instead of crafting a soundscape that is realistic, sound designers and engineers have a lot of leeway in a film to design sounds that create the right impression of reality, or that reflect a character's subjective experience, rather than what the environment or the objects would actually sound like. I'm sure we're all familiar with the idea of score using a motif or theme to cue a certain character. This film obviously has one for Batman that it employs in sometimes strikingly subtle ways, like in this moment where it literally only plays the first note of the theme.
The Batman won an Oscar for its soundtracks.
As the words "the Batman" appear on screen. We often think of a film's soundtrack as coming from a kind of objective perspective, where the film itself is telling us what the emotions of the scene are or what's happening. But film score can be used subjectively as well. In this moment when Selina's theme plays as this boot is revealed, the film's score isn't telling us objectively that it's Selina, because it turns out not to be. The film is telling us that Bruce thinks it's Selina. My favorite soundtrack cue in the film is the Riddler's Ave Maria, which is used expertly for this scene.
Mr. Wayne.
The association between the Riddler and the song is established earlier in the film, and here the fact that the choir sings it before the Riddler shows up gives the whole scene a sense of foreboding and suspense. But by placing the music in the scene diegetically, which just means that the sound is actually coming from within the world of the film instead of just one that's part of the omniscient soundtrack, it creates a sense of ambiguity that pervades the scene. The ambiguity doesn't just come from the song, we also hear this sound, which sounds like the Riddler's signature gasp, scream thing, but then it ends in a cough. So we're not quite sure if it's supposed to actually be the Riddler or not.
Okay, this is also the kind of analyzing that needs to be done for this reason, because while you're watching a film, this is all subconscious. Like, this is the unconscious of the film. Whenever you're not completely aware, you're not like there like in the theater like listening for like those very nuanced moments within the film, whether it's like the sound or the next scene or the next the wardrobe that might be referencing to another thing. It's all subconscious. Like, it's what makes film so great, that you then, once you get the moment, you're in the moment, you get back to the point that's being made, and it jumps at you again, and you're like, oh, that's why this happened, or that's why that happened. That's just lovely in a film. I love that.
Which is the entire tension of the scene. Bruce is paranoid and is seeing the Riddler everywhere, and the film does a great job of helping us enter into that ambiguity and mystery through the sound design.
On Halloween night, I killed your mayor because he was not who he pretended to be.
One of the interesting auditory tools that this movie uses kind of exists in the space between sound effect and soundtrack. Listen to this ambient soundscape. It's kind of an underwater droning, and it crops up pretty much any time the Riddler is on screen and Batman is looking at or listening to him. It's not a piece of film score, but it's also not really a sound effect. It's not motivated by any element of the environment. But this sound, unlike Ave Maria, also isn't a cue for the Riddler. It's more of a cue for Batman's emotional response to the Riddler.
This part of the movie had me so confused.
Here, that underwater ambience comes in right after Falcone is shot, giving us an early indication that the Batman thinks the Riddler is responsible.
Bring him into the light.
And then it shifts to the Ave Maria theme as that suspicion is confirmed.
You'll find where I'm at.
After the Riddler is unmasked and the Batman has a confrontation with him, the next time we see a video of the Riddler...
Bro, the Riddler was...
Want a satisfying, remote-friendly job that pays well?
The Riddler has such a great has such great moments in this film. I think the way they just masterfully delivered on him was absolute genius.
Because the Batman's perspective of the Riddler has changed. I'm honestly kind of in awe of the extensive work and artistry that goes into the sound design on a film like this. It takes entire teams of people, an incredible amount of work, and a lot of thought goes into crafting every part of how a film like this sounds. And a lot of the techniques used aren't even intuitive. For example, why is this scene so impactful? The sound of the club
top 10 Batman scenes.
Tense and overwhelming. Well, it turns out to make the scene feel the way it does, the sound team discovered that they actually needed to make the sound of the punches quieter. Compare the sound of these hits to these from moments earlier. It's a mild difference, but in the mix, these hits are actually quieter than these. Here's a modified version of this scene where I brought up the levels of some of these punches. It changes the whole feel of the scene. When we're watching a film, we understand the volume of sounds relative to each other. So if the punches in this scene are clearly audible, the music feels way quieter.
This man is like,
if we were in the room
should
and
be
the music
hired
was
for
really
this
blaring,
too.
you wouldn't be able to hear these hits. Another example of this kind of thing is in this scene, where we can clearly hear the rain, but then moments later, once gunfire breaks out, the rain falls away into silence. Listen to this modified version where the sound of the rain remains audible. The gunshots actually sound quieter even though I haven't changed their level. All I've done is leave the rain at the volume it was at moments before.
Nuance right there. That's amazing.
The key takeaway here is that almost nothing you hear in a film like this is a
The train track is also a reference, I would say, to the prior Batman movies, where I think it's like heavily an aesthetic of Batman movies. The train track sounds.
Of reality. The sound is almost entirely impressionistic and expressionistic. The idea is to create a sound that feels right to the audience, not one that would be accurate if closely examined. Because realism isn't the goal, you often can't achieve what you want simply by going out into the world and recording real-world sounds. The Batmobile is a great example of this. The sound design combines the engine sounds from multiple sources, but there's a key ingredient that comes from a curious place. That's the sound of a bottle rocket going off. Supervising sound editor Will Files liked the sound and wanted to incorporate it into the sound design of the Batmobile, but it was too short and felt too quick and small. It was ultimately the same technique that was used to create this strange ethereal version of this Justin Bieber song that morphed the bottle rocket sound into the sound of the Batmobile that's in the film. By stretching the same bottle rocket sound out into different lengths and then layering those together, Files and his team were able to build the unique rising scream that helps make the Batmobile reveal so impactful. And by modifying a real sound instead of trying to generate it synthetically, they maintained a physicality and imperfect quality in the sound that's a better fit for the film and the Batmobile's grungy, dirty aesthetic. Subjective perspective plays an incredibly important role in the story of the Batman, and I've been talking about how that subjectivity is created.
Yeah, this guy makes me think that sound carried in this movie.
I think is crucial to the story the movie is trying to tell. You can see more about how the film develops and uses visual perspective in the companion video I've made exclusively available on Nebula. Nebula is a streaming platform created by and for independent content creators like myself. On Nebula, you can watch every video from me and a ton of other amazing creators early and without any ads or sponsorships. But you also get access to a bunch of exclusive Nebula content, like my video on perspective in Batman, or my video on the sound design in Dune, which goes into some of the cool uses of surround sound mixing that I don't talk about in this video. And now you can also get an entire bonus episode of my podcast Cinema of Meaning, where Tom and I discussed 1917. It's available exclusively on our Nebula feed. And here's the best thing, you can get Nebula for less than $15 for an entire year when you sign up for the Curiosity Stream Plus Nebula bundle. You can get all of this today for 26% off when you sign up by going to curiositystream.com/ThomasFlight or by clicking the link on the screen.
Click it. Click it, click it, click it, click it. Hey, I have to give it up for this man's editing on this video. It's such an amazing video. But yeah, man, I would love to watch a Dune video now, but that's it for today.